The following audio resource is produced and distributed by Mark Inc. Ministries, 2880 Summit Bridge Road, Bear, Delaware, 19701. Contact us toll-free at 1-877-MARK-INC. Visit us on the web at markinc.org.
As we walked up, I saw a small car, and there was a young man and a young woman in it. Because of the lighting, I couldn't tell anything, and I knew that the person needed advanced life support. And part of what we do is, while they're rescue, we don't want to get involved in rescue or get in the way of rescue. So while they were cutting the car open and whatnot, I got in the back of the ambulance and got my equipment ready. And when they brought the male passenger into the car, I looked at it and I knew right away it was Mark Betters.
Our son.
Your son.
And what was your response when you saw that?
My first response was, I'm mistaken. And I did everything I could to prove that it wasn't him.
We would have hoped that you were right.
Just everything I could. And the one thing that I couldn't get out of my head that definitely knew that it was him was he was smiling.
Mm-hmm.
When you hear the wailing of an emergency vehicle siren, what comes to your mind? Someone hurt in a traffic accident? A house on fire? A crime has just been committed? Someone suffering from a heart attack? When you hear that siren, it's a safe assumption that someone has become a victim of some unpleasant experience. But, as you are about to hear, in many emergency situations, there are actually two victims: the person who is in need of help and the person giving help. Join Chuck and Sharon Betters as they interview two men who are first responders, wounded healers, and learn how beneath that brave rescuer's exterior is a man or a woman who often hurts emotionally as they aid us on the front lines of trauma. This interview is a part of our series entitled Learning to See When the Lights Go Out. It is entitled First Responders, Wounded Healers. Here now is Dr. Chuck Betters.
Thanks, Tom, and we really appreciate the opportunity to come into your home or wherever you might be listening to this new production in our series of Learning to See When the Lights Go Out. Sharon, we are privileged to have with us a couple of men who are going to share from a very special perspective. And why don't you tell our listeners, first of all, what Learning to See When the Lights Go Out is all about?
Well, Learning to See When the Lights Go Out is a CD series of 1-hour interviews where we cover topics that have caused great pain in the lives of others. The first one we did was on dealing with breast cancer from a couple's perspective. Loss of a loved one, where you and I were both interviewed for the breast cancer CD and for the loss of a loved one CD. And then we have one on terminal illness from the perspective of a spouse. And then Dying with Dignity and Grace, where we interviewed a couple 2 weeks before the husband died of a terrible disease. And then our most recent one was Alcoholism, Help, and Hope. And in each of these interviews, we are really honest and transparent. And our purpose is to give people hope when the lights go out in their lives.
That's an awesome responsibility, and we are trying to touch people where they really are, where they really hurt. And probably one of the more forgotten areas of responsibility that we have in our culture today are those who actually are on the site of an accident or on the site of a tragedy or on the site of some catastrophic event we call the first responders. So Sharon, why don't you tell us who we have in the room today and what the purpose of this interview is?
We have Art Trout and Bob Dinatel, who are both experienced as first responders. And the title of this CD interview is First Responders, Wounded Healers. And I think that tells all about where we're going to go with this interview. The responsibility is so grave, and I think we often forget about the anguish and the sorrow that the first responders can experience.